Everyone feared the Mafia boss, but the only woman he couldn't control was the one he needed the most. So the night he tested her loyalty, it wasn't to see if she would betray him. It was to see if she would walk away. And somehow, that possibility terrified him more than losing his empire ever could. If you love cinematic crime stories like this, subscribe, because this only gets darker. The night the Mafia boss tested her loyalty, he already knew the answer. Or at least, he thought he did. The rain had just started falling, slow, steady, not dramatic, just enough to make the city smell like wet concrete and old secrets. A black car door shut heavily outside the estate. Inside, no one spoke. He stood near the window, hands behind his back. Calm, controlled, the kind of calm that makes people nervous. She stood across the room, still, unshaken. And that's what unsettled him. Because loyalty is easy when you're afraid, but she wasn't afraid. And that was the problem. What do you do when the one person closest to you doesn't fear you? He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He just turned slightly and said quietly, "I need you to do something for me." That was it. No explanation, no details, just a request wrapped in silence. She held his gaze longer than most people ever dared to. "Well," she said softly, "that depends." That? It lasted just a second too long, and in his world, hesitation meant risk. But this wasn't about business. This was about trust, and trust, for a mafia king, was more dangerous than betrayal. So why did her calmness feel like a challenge? The house felt different that night, the air heavier, the ticking clock louder. He watched her closely, not like a man watching a suspect, but like someone trying to understand something he couldn't quite reach. She moved through the room without rushing. No nervous energy, no shaky hands, just steady. "You don't trust me," she said finally. It wasn't an accusation, it was an observation. He didn't answer immediately, because the truth was complicated. In his world, trust wasn't given, it was tested. And tonight, he intended to test hers. But what he didn't admit, even to himself, was that he was testing his own control too. He asked her to deliver a message. That was all. Simple. Clean. No danger attached. At least, not physically. But the message? It would hurt someone close to him. Not violently, just emotionally. A cut that doesn't bleed but changes everything. And he needed to know. Would she follow his word blindly? Or would she question him? That was the real test. Because blind loyalty is easy. Moral loyalty? That's different. She took the envelope, held it in her hand, looked at him, and said quietly, "Do you want obedience or honesty?" The rain hit harder against the glass, and for the first time that night, he didn't have an immediate answer. She didn't leave. She didn't walk out. She didn't refuse. But she didn't move either. "I won't hurt someone for you," she said calmly, not emotionally, not to prove anything. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. "And if that makes me disloyal, then maybe you're testing the wrong thing." Silence. Long. Uncomfortable. He realized something in that moment. Everyone around him obeyed out of fear. But she chose him. And choosing is more powerful than fearing. So why did that scare him more? He walked closer, slowly, not intimidating, not aggressive, just thoughtful. "The message," he said quietly, "was never meant to be delivered." She blinked once, confused. "It was meant to see if you would stop me." Another pause. The rain softened now, almost fading. He exhaled, something he rarely did in front of anyone. "I don't need someone who follows orders," he admitted. "I need someone who protects what I can't see." And what he couldn't see was himself. The loyalty test wasn't about betrayal. It was about vulnerability. and vulnerability terrified him more than enemies ever could. She stepped closer, not submissive, not controlled, just present. "You don't test loyalty by pushing people away," she said gently. "You build it by standing still." He studied her face. No fear, no manipulation, just honesty. And that's when he understood. He hadn't tested her loyalty. He had tested whether she would lose herself for him. And she hadn't. That's why she stayed. The rain stopped completely. The silence felt different now. Softer, not empty, just honest. And somewhere between control and trust, the Mafia boss realized something unexpected. The most dangerous woman in his world was the one who refused to fear him. And maybe that was loyalty after all.